and thanks for staying with us. A video went viral, and we saw a group of men who claimed to be brothers beating up their sister's husband. According to them, he had been beating up his wife, their sister, for years, and they have been warning him, in their words, this is the best way to curb domestic violence. What's your thought on this? Should we use violence to fight violence? Join the conversation by calling us on 081-270-53687, or you can call us on 091-390-76948. So, Nima, was it Nima? Somebody on this show, I can't remember the person, I don't want to just, but I think it's Nima. Okay. I said, okay, I think it was Mariah. Mariah shared that story that there was someone that was beating up, threatened, and I think there was a bit of beating of a woman, and then the brothers went there and beat up the man, and that was the end of domestic violence in the house, because they showed that the woman is not alone, and she had people that care about her and people that were willing to fight for her. But is violence the solution to curbing domestic violence, Mariam?
You know, there are some conversations that are politically correct to have, and then there are some that you do at the back of your room. So, for me, I don't believe in violence and non-violence. Two wrongs don't make a right, because we know how these things can, you know, what they may lead to. Sometimes you're just hoping to slap someone around to teach somebody a lesson, and then the person faints or the person dies, and then it's a whole other matter that we're discussing. So it's best to just go the route of, you know, the police. Report that person to the police and make sure that that person is prosecuted or things like that, or remove yourself from that violent situation. That is what I feel most comfortable with. Because it's not always the case that you now use violence to, in this case, beat up a brother-in-law, and then you leave. Maybe he does not beat her up for a few days or a few months, and then he remembers every day he's just sitting there in his house brooding like, hey. So they came and they embarrassed me, they beat me in front of you and in front of our children, and then he does something even more violent than what he was doing. So for me, the best thing is even to take yourself out of the situation, and if that person is such a danger, that person should, you know, be reported to, taken to police custody. But I would not lie. There's this feeling of satisfaction you get when a bully is being, you know, given a taste of their own medicine.
Yeah.
There's that, like, now you know how it feels. Look at your face. Also, you can beg. Oh, you know how to cry too. So you can feel the pain. I know that is there, but just for safety's sake, really don't be involved in violence.
I don't want to be politically correct.
Please, thank you.
This has been the method over the years. So I don't know how we got so, what would I call it, dramatic during our traditional marriages. But when it was done in those days, the reason they call the family boys is so that the man will be giving the riot act. That in case your muscle is lifting up, don't turn my daughter to a punching bag. Then the boys at the back will invite the husband. Okay, on my own wedding, my husband was invited, even though my brother was younger.
Yeah. And
he told him, he said, this is your wife, she's a problem. First of all, pay first. He paid. And such conversations, my cousins, and the boys in my family, they have this muscle, you know, that kind of thing. They'll come and show you muscle. So that's how it's done. They converse and they talk about the girl. They tell you how much they cherish her and all of that. So that in case you want to be doing gangam, it's allowed. I remember this story as a child when one of my aunties was going back and forth, and my father kept saying, the first thing you usually would do as a brother is visit the family. You beg the husband, and you know some men with sweet mouth, she's not good at all. There was one I saw, where direct at the father, you do not raise your daughter at all.
Wow.
Insulting the family, and such things. My father would say, you can just talk to the person first. Then the next time, I remember when his sister was beaten, my father just instructed my mom, said, go and move her out of the house, because to avoid beating the hell out of that man. It is a method traditionally Africans have deployed, and it's one of the things that gives me pride, if only it could have been retained. Yes, it gives me pride. When a man thinks that, you know, I know I've married this less girl, I can deal with her, you need somebody to remind you she's cherished. Families should, no, I want to finish. Families should start to step in the right way. It used to stop domestic violence. There's the respect that you must ensure. That's why we have now turned it down to money. The respect you must ensure that that man has for the family of the girl he's marrying. But some family people have gotten greedy. You see the uncles who will not be directly affected asking for money when they should focus on the discussion. So they know Olokundi, as in she's from a family, she has a lineage. She's from a well-to-do. You don't just marry a girl, bring her home. When you talk to her 2 times, 3 times, pow, 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 and you'll be normal. So you must respect the family. And such treatment to any daughter is an insult by extension to her brothers, so showing that they are weak.
This reminds me of why most parents insist that you should do a proper marriage, be married traditionally. Because they feel like if you go through that traditional marriage process, you come into the house, you have a conversation, you understand that this woman is coming from a family. But what about women that don't have that kind of setting? Maybe they are orphans, they grew up across from different members of the family, and by the time they were old enough, before they were getting married, they already started living by themselves without that sort of family structure of big brothers that will come and fight. I don't have big brothers or younger brothers, so who is going to come and...
cousins? I have just one biological brother.
At the wedding, at my wedding, we didn't have that conversation of, hey, of course, every Yoruba wedding, they will say, I'm not giving you my daughter for you to train her. I'm not giving you a cane to flog her. You know, that conversation happens during weddings in most cases. But the idea of how do we now protect the people that don't have brothers that would fight for them? And so the culture of violence. Are you sure that the idea of doing this fighting to resolve the issue?
That's the culture of defense. You're missing the point.
Okay.
Something, it provoked that reaction. If I come to you once, don't beat my sister again, even as a girl, me, and I tell you, no, this Ghana, uncle, this method of, is not good. Please, next time, you people can talk. And you look down at me, and the next time I'm invited and I meet my sister in the world state, trust me, I will beat you. I will get people who are bigger than you. No, I'm serious. That's why I said I don't want to be politically correct. Because some people need to taste this medicine. I have seen a man who was so demeaned by his in-laws to the point of begging. He never tried it again. But because every time they come, they will sit him, he will not start talking about how she's badly raised. You married an adult. If you are not ready to marry, leave her. You don't carry your wife and beat.
Mariam,
I will beat you if I was a man.
Let me take this call. Okay. Yes. Someone has called in on the show. When we take that call, I'll come to you, Mariam. Caller from Ikeja, welcome to the show. Good morning.
Good morning.
All right. Do you agree with...
Let me, first of all, good morning, everybody. Let me first of all put this thing so that you know it is back. Ecclesiastes 3:1-8. I won't read everything. For everything, there is a season and a time for every matter under heaven. If you read down, there's a time to kill and a time to heal. If you read further down, there's a time to keep and a time to throw away. There's a time to tear and a time to sow. There's a time to love and a time to hate. There's a time for war and a time for peace. I always say, when it is time to fight and you keep peace, there will be problems.
Yes, sir.
When it is time to keep peace and you fight, there will be problems. So, in some situations, and I can give myself as an example, in some situations, retaliation will curb any further nonsense. Whether as the woman, you are the one that will carry hot water and pour, or you are the one that will grind pepper and rub when the person is sleeping. Believe me, sometimes, a lot of times, not even sometimes, a lot of times it works. Caution, don't ever do it in the middle of the night when the person can wake up and it's only 2 of you. Do it when you can do and run outside.
Yes.
Situated.
I'm with you.
Second scenario
is true.
If you have family members that can defend you, please
run to
them. I suffered in silence for maybe like 3 years before my brain woke up. I'm still married 19 years later, my sister. But some efforts were treated and treated royally. The third one is, at the point that violence is happening in the marriage, you should know it's one or two ways. Either the marriage ends, or you treat the person idiocy and the marriage works.
Okay. So, our first caller seems to be supporting Nima's point of view.
So, the example she gave in the Bible, time for peace and a time for war. And I agree, there is a time for war. But what are the weapons of word that you're using. That's my problem. And that, for me, is what is important. Now we will say there's a way we would say it, and it's funny, and, you know, you feel like you can learn from it. What if the person decides to use a gun? Eh? What if the person... We've heard it. Women who get so frustrated from the domestic violence and they decide it's time for war now, and they take a gun. So people have taken knives and stabbed their husbands. And in the end, nobody's talking about the domestic violence. They are now talking about the criminal act that you have committed. And that's, for me, is the reason why I would not encourage violence for violence. I encourage taking yourself out of it and getting the police involved. Let your weapon of warfare be the police doing what they are meant to do. Lock that person up for as long as that person needs to be locked up. Let the person do some form of, you know, work. And if you... for me, I don't even understand how I want to be in a marriage after we have beaten each other. Do you understand?
But she's celebrating 19 years after, and she said the first 3 years was a battle.
I know. But I'm like, for me, Miriam, I don't know, after, you know, you have beaten me, then I'll now call all my family people, then they now beat you. Then 3 years down, and then we'll be just say, mind yourself, or else I will call that uncle to come and beat you. I'll be too embarrassed. I don't want to have that kind of conversation. I don't want to be.
But it's not the same. But you know, okay, so let's take Kelechi. Kelechi has called in, and then I love where you are. I want us to stay a bit there. Yes. Please, Kelechi, welcome to the show. Good morning.
Dr. Uncle, good morning.
Good morning.
Please, domestic violence and gender-based violence, so to speak, has been discussed on this platform several times, and it favored only the women. And somebody like me, I'm not comfortable with that. I'm not saying the men are better off, but a balance should be, we should strike a balance.
Okay.
You understand? Let me share this story with you. A guy was invited in an airline. While he was waiting in the reception, it's a big airline though. I worked in that airline. While he was waiting to be called for the interview, he slumped and died right inside that reception. The wife is a lawyer. It was during his wake we discovered how terrible the wife was. So you understand, the wife was. Do you know the wife sometimes because the guy was a calm person. Sometimes the wife would beat him up as he was going out. Sometimes he will lock the guy outside, he sleep in the passage. Several times. In fact, the wake was dismissed in anger. So you understand? So see, what I'm saying is, so a situation, how do you reconcile it? How do you define a situation where a woman will keep making the man uncomfortable with her ranting and her problems?
That's emotional violence.
We'll go Nima style. We'll call your sisters.
No, but that's the style. So let me quickly do the balance.
Yes.
So Kelechi is talking on one side. Traditionally, just as the brothers are supposed to show up at an abusive husband, the sisters show up at a narcissistic wife. So one of such occurrences happened in my own family, and my aunties, they came in, and she locked them out. They boxed the door and crushed her with the door and said, you see this, our brother? We must not hear again that he does not have a mouth to speak in his house. Traditionally, there are methods that we've all downplayed because, you know, we're becoming modern. It's like you just sitting in your house on the weekend and 3 of your sister-in-laws say they choose to visit you to address an issue. You will not want that kind of meeting to happen again.
No.
Yeah.
Immediately, whatever it is that, you know...
So a conversation can be had and not beaten. Let's take the phone call from Raphael.
We heard that they want the brother over.
Yeah, we'll get you.
Beating can get to the point, okay, yeah, bounce out. Let's give you our weakest son.
Raphael,
since
welcome.
You want to be beating people.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning, Raphael. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, I am Raphael from Ebusemet.
You're welcome to the show.
Yeah, this discussion, I'm happy this discussion this morning. I've been a fan, and this is my first time of calling.
Welcome to the show.
Yeah, I love this discussion because presently I'm having one of the issues around me now, even as yesterday. So I want to support Miriam. I want to support Miriam on our own opinion. Saying that violence for violence is not going to bring us profit. For instance, if the husband or the wife that abroad brings in our brother for whatever reason and be beat up or rescue that time, the rescue is not only going to be for that time.
And also the husband who is the champion of the house will also go back again as a boss. Going to look for one person or the other to defend that I am insulted in my own house. And at the end of the day, you don't know where that will possibly end up with. Remembering that they have kids who are watching from both of the families. So I support Miriam.
I agree.
So we've heard two very, very clear sides. Nima is of the opinion that traditionally this was a way to curb violence within the home, and it happens in both cases. So Kelechi, we have balanced it. But Mariam's of the opinion that you can't put a limit to how the violence would go. You might think, I'm just going to slap, and then you slap and he hits his head on the wall and he dies,
Which
and then
is
things
one...
go out of control.
So let's get more serious here. Okay. Domestic violence is one thing that happens and can be very damaging. Imagine that he continues to beat his wife, who never raises a hand for defense, and the first time she tried to defend herself, she picks a knife and stabs him wrongly. We'll be in court. If she has a good lawyer, she will get away with it for self-defense. But if she doesn't get beaten and they learn to converse over time, we will never get to the point of provocation and one person acting irrational at the time of fear. Okay. So the same goes for the woman who constantly abuses her husband verbally. Some even go physical because they have a bigger abuse on their husbands in the house. The first time the man might decide to do something, it might just be the wrong push and she hits her head and decides to, and that's it. That's why domestic violence is discouraged on every front.
And I'm happy you raised that, because usually when it happens and the woman may get some empathy that, okay, she's been in such a toxic relationship and she stood up for the first time. A man would not. Nobody will want to hear that this is the first time you hit your wife and then she died. Nobody's going to hear that. So is it not just better to tell the men and women, to tell our sons and daughters, to not even involve yourself? Come and tell me I'm your mother. I will take you to the police. I will take you out of there.
So Mariam,
I also like
those days. You don't just easily quickly welcome.
No, I know that tradition. I agree with you that. See, I respect our tradition, and you know, as you're growing older, there's so many things you cast your mind back, and you understand the reason why things were done that way. And we did not have a justice system like we do today. So that was the justice system. They used to take them and throw them into a dark forest for them to be eaten by animals.
Forbidden forest.
Thank you. But now we have a system. And I also think self-preservation is key. In the end, look at it in... You know, preserve yourself, preserve your life, preserve your health, preserve your sanity. Take yourself out. Take your children out of that vicinity. If the man is not moved by the threat that you will be leaving the house, if a woman is not moved by the fact that this marriage will be ending, I'm telling you, there's no amount of beating.
There was no marriage.
So there's something you mentioned earlier that I think we should dig a bit on, is the fact that what if a violence was one-off? You said, I cannot imagine... You know, that scenario of, I cannot imagine somebody will beat me and then we beat back, and after the quarrel will now continue in peace. But what if the violence was a one-off? What if the husband or the wife are going through a very tense situation and they shocked themselves and behaved out of character and became violent with their partner, and the resultant violence from the partner made them realize that no matter how frustrated you are, violence is never the solution, and they're able to build a marriage on from that point. That is no more violence. You know, people were, our last caller, and I hate to use as an example, but, you know, people were commenting that she shouldn't have taken her daughter back to that school. You know, they say, oh, if he has beaten you once, he will beat you again. Don't ever remain in that situation. But what if it was a one-off and it doesn't happen again? How do we now, will we now end up scattering a beautiful relationship based on...
You never know. You never know. Let me give you one gist. I remember when we were in secondary school, one of my friends used to date someone who was much older, and we looked at her like the business until I got close and realized he used to slap her here once in a while. And one day I was sitting down with them when he was he was like, you know, sometimes in his own mind, though, I just give her a slap, just a slap, you know, like, yes, like, you know, when we're angry, it's not like it's not a thing that I do. I'm not a violent person. But, you know, she runs her mouth a bit and I just slap her. And my friend was smiling beside as the man of her life is helping adjust her. If that girl if my friend were to go on to marry that sort of person, I am very sure it would have been a domestic violent situation
Should have
in her
lived in
marriage.
fear.
But he explained it a certain way. We were young, but I just remember me sitting down there and thinking, this is horrible. I went cold. I was so upset. This is horrible. But for her, at that time, she was just sitting down beside her man that understands how to handle a woman. So it's not, I don't know about if it's, maybe when, see, some people will give you their story, just like our previous caller when she said, this is what we did, and we're able to enjoy many years of marriage. So until it happens, then you can say, oh, but before then, you cannot say for sure what it will go, because that is a good story we have heard. I mean, it was not too long ago we talked about the gospel singer.
So,
yes.
Nima, let me come to you after taking this phone call. Adeniro has called us from Asheshe. Welcome to the show. Good morning.
Good morning, my dear. Everybody in the house. Everybody. Bless God. I appreciate and enjoy all these your hot topics almost every morning. It was interesting last week when our leader happened to be a guest speaker on the show. So I was somehow interested in having her as a person to be interviewed. Anyway, come to the topic of the day.
Okay.
You know, you guys always do fantastic stuff through this medium. I don't think Nima's suggestion is the solution. We might have been coming from one traditional setting or the other from the beginning. But remember, even in Islam, I don't think anything possible is that. Refer to Miriam's opinion. You don't quench fire with fire. And then when you look at it, it might result in a long-standing fluid. You don't know where the man, if you don't know a man, you do not.
Okay.
So I was going to, give examples of how some men are wired. I've sat up close with men who said, no, there's nothing there. Just something to show her that you're the man. You slap her once in a while. Mm-hmm. And I sat up close. In fact, I remember saying to someone that, you see the way your sister is being treated. The husband will beat the sister and think she's not learning enough, and then beat and drag her outside and put her naked. So to demean her further. And neighbors will be like, you don't have family, you don't have people. And that person will be like, doesn't solve. Because she will then go back in love and all of that. I said, And when you went there, you saw your sister in that state. You didn't get provoked enough for the man to fear that something will happen to the extent he had opportunity to talk. Why I'm saying this is because, just because Asheshe has, last caller just said it again. I'm saying, show an abuser, just as you would as a mother when somebody abuses your child, that this child has a defense. Let that abuser fear something. It is traditionally done. I did not quote Islam and I didn't go legal. If we even want to talk legal, the process. I have had domestic violence cases of 2019 still pending in court today. And the man is using every means to make sure that woman doesn't see her kids. The abuse continues to extend. Imagine that what Shola did was what she had done in the first year of her marriage. Sometimes the women standing up, when you stand up to your abuser, you curb your abuser's excesses. But when you cower down, the abuser just thinks, I married a child.
So we'll talk
about
either
you standing up. How do you stand up?
That's the conversation. Yes. How far is too far?
So, and the legal process has to be given this urgency that it requires. In Lagos State, there's a special court for that purpose. You can file within 48 hours. You can get your defense. But Nigerians will come to the lawyers without money. So you want to do the right thing, but you don't have the funds. So we have so many other... Your family that married you out, were you people just cohabiting? You don't have family. He must be able to walk to your family and you mustn't talk to them with disrespect.
I know that Sharia court will not even give you time to waste time. I mean, they will handle it.
Let's take a break.
Sharia courts have in some ways supported such nonsense that I know of.
Well, and thanks for staying with us. We've been discussing domestic violence and the retaliation mission. And we are trying to understand how far is too far when we decide to retaliate. Some of the opinion that we should approach it in terms of having a conversation, trying to be rational. And another opinion is you cannot be rational with somebody that is irrational. There's no conversation to be had. And because we also don't want to speak, we don't want to support or promote violence, especially all the other spiritual things that can happen from that violence. Because if you allow your children grow up in a violent environment, you might end up raising kids that will be doing the exact thing that you as a woman suffered from to another person's daughter. If you decide to condone and live in violence as a man, you might end up raising your boys to feel like it's okay to be beaten and pushed around. So the effect is beyond you. The effect of violence is transgenerational. And so it's important that we find a way to nip it in the bud or nip it early enough in a way that will not become a crime. So that's the part we need to, because if we follow the culture that Nima mentioned, we might end up committing a crime to stop a crime. And we don't want that.
So I just want to also say that what Nima is saying, there's a part of it that I think we need to emphasize, and I agree with that part, which is you don't hide domestic violence from your family.
Yeah.
It's important that your family is aware, and that's how they can help you. But the only place I differ is the method of helping you. But I'm not saying that because no violence for violence, that a woman should sit down quietly inside a violent home and receive it and not say anything until the day that she, goes crazy. We must speak up about domestic violence. We must let someone know, trusted family members know, our parents, our siblings, our cousins. We have to speak up. For men, especially, we are hearing this even more these days, that there are men who are going through this and they're afraid to talk. They feel ashamed because nobody, is like it's like an abuse to their ego. Like, how can you, a whole man, be hit? Please speak to a friend, speak to someone that you trust, and let your family be involved in solving it. Because men, we know of men who are in domestic violence situations. The only reason that they are not hitting back, because they know if they do hit back, it would go, that the woman will not be able to take it. She may break a limb, she may break a limb or something. And so they found themselves in this conundrum where I can't do anything about it, and I'm so tired of the situation I'm in.
Twist it around and say,
let's
that's
take
how
a phone call.
every time.
So let's take a phone call. Ali was called from Abuja. Welcome to the show. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning.
So which side of the fence are you on?
Yes, I think I'm so happy getting people. I was wondering whether this line is a special line that's only open to some special.
Welcome to the show.
I've been trying, and finally, thank God I've got you.
Oh, welcome.
Yes, but I think I'm addicted to this, your program.
Oh.
I can't do without watching this, your In fact, it's like an addiction in short.
Yeah, thanks.
I love you guys, and I think you are doing a very
so
wonderful job.
Thank you.
Yes, I've been listening to this conversation. Even the Hajia there, I think she was talking about tradition. I think sometimes, you see, our tradition is so important that tradition teaches you lesson. You don't hear anything. It's just like when we said, okay, come and swear with the tradition that you will not do this. You will never even try it because you know that nemesis is. But now, somebody will hold Bible, hold Quran, he can do anything he wants to do because he said, God will not even do anything until maybe until when I die. But when you look at this domestic violence, let's look at it this way. Number one, I blame the women in marriage. I blame the women in marriage because I don't understand what they say marriage. Believe that marriage is about happiness. How can you get married to a man who has been battering you, beating you, subjecting you to all kinds of trauma, and in the name of saying, I don't want to divorce? This for better, for worse thing has rendered everything something ridiculous. Look at even when you go to the so-called men of God, whenever you are being abused, they will encourage you, just endure. Look at the woman that was killed the other time by her husband, that singer, popular singer. You can imagine if that woman is saying, how you feel? So in as much as, yes, another version is saying that you don't do fire for fire, because sometimes in the process to retaliate, how do you measure the level of retaliation?
Out of proportion.
But the question is, the women that are in marriage who want the husband that so much said to your parents that so much love you, begin to violate you or beat you back, doing all kind of dehumanizing you as human. Why don't you out of that marriage? Once you be in marriage, and sometimes maybe that man is not meant for you. If it's meant for you, just like the other lady said, that how can a man beat you after beating you blue black
suddenly some people interfere and say, don't worry, you people can go and stay. Even me, I'm married. I'm married. I told my wife, I prayed that the devil will not step in. The moment I raise my hand, the marriage is over. I can't imagine a woman like this later in bed say, I love you, darling, forgive me, and then you continue again. That man will do another worse thing to your life. And life is precious. And I think if a man that actually loves you.
Thank you so much, Ali. You got in today and you really contributed.
Yes.
But, you know, you see, we need to realize something. You know, I said it earlier. I said that when you don't deal with domestic violence, you breed a generation of domestic violence. So there are men and women who would beat you and feel like they really love you. Like they are convinced that you provoked
Or they will beg you.
and they will beg you and tell you, I love you. I'm sorry. I didn't know what happened. You just got me so angry and I slapped you and I'm sorry. And then 2 days after they slap again and they will be sorry. They would apologize. So you cannot deal rationally with someone who is going through, who's been raised in a traumatic way. So we are not dealing with a rationally, human being to human being. Why would I beat you when I cannot even beat my friend? I cannot, like, if you're my friend, I won't beat you, I won't hurt you. Yeah. Then I love you, you've given me children. Why would I want to hurt such a person? That's a rational, good thinking person. But the person who resorts to violence, there is something wrong in the formation of that person right from time. And they've seen it as normal, which is not. Yes. So they need to be reset.
Some people raise their girls. So think it is the manly thing when he beats you.
Oh, yes.
There's a woman who said to me that, I know my husband loves me when he gets to slapping me.
And he slaps
When he slaps me.
Yeah.
That's whenever, because I'm crazy. When I go crazy, I get slapped. And when he does it, I know it's because he loves me.
Wow.
I was a 16-year-old girl listening to two sisters and one saying that nonsense to another. And I thought, no, they don't beat this one. The brain know they work well again.
Obviously,
but some people raise their girls to say, when you learn the ways of your husband so that he never beats you, you never provoke him, you do everything to please him, that's when you're a good daughter-in-law and a good representation of our family. So when they send you there and you're beaten, wait till you do them. Do you understand?
Yes.
Wait till you do them. When you now see the few ones who say, don't beat our sister again, this thing is not going, and then they finally get provoked to the point they tie you to a tree and give you better lashing, you say they did something wrong. No, we've seen this. We are Africans, that's as we're talking tradition. These are methods that, traditionally we're used to teach some girls. Submission.
Okay, so the original question we're trying to answer.
Some people, what they would do is, I've seen this, but it was a movie, where they will bring boxing gloves and say, okay, so this one is not a beating. It's like, okay, let's fight this thing man to man in a boxing ring and let's have our family members.
Yeah, I've heard such stories too.
So maybe that is another way. But
that's humiliating, but it gets you a bit ashamed, so that maybe the shame will now curb you from doing that kind of thing again. Let's take Jane from Oshodi. Then we have not answered that question, which is, how far is too far in our revenge mission? Jane, welcome to the show.
Yeah, good morning.
Good morning.
Yes, I'm happy that I'm calling after listening to some callers. Let me take it from the last caller who just called. And, this issue of marriage, I pray God will help us. That's why we must look before we leap. I don't want us to come on air and encourage marriages to break up because of violence.
Break up now.
But the point is that before you got married, that's why they will ask you questions. You both of you take each other. They will ask you questions. You are standing before God and before man to take that vow. They will ask both of you. They will even ask people if you have any reasons why these two should not be joined together. And they will even ask both of you. And both of you say, we don't have any reasons, and you join yourself. Someone said, one of my pastors have said, the day you get married, God just takes the key of that marriage and throws it into an ocean. Because you have signed the lifelong contract. That is why you don't rush. You must look before you leave. So you don't give people excuses to just break up because things didn't work out for them. Then the question they will ask you is, before you guys entered, didn't you guys look there before you entered into the marriage? Nobody forced you. You're not that you like this person and both of you entered. That's by the way. What I want to say is there any excuse for violence? Should we justify any reason for violence? No. So that man who went and called, or that woman that the brothers came and picked up the man, I think the man may not lay his hand on that woman again for the fear of the brothers, not because he wouldn't want to beat the woman, but because of the fear of the brothers. That tells you that man must have been someone who abused women even before he got married. Like it's only one of you told that if her friend or that the man usually slap, that they didn't know that the man usually slap the girl. The girl was looking all night and everything. He tells us that man has that tendency to beat up a woman. And these are signs you must watch out for. A man that will beat you in marriage must have been showing that signs even before he got married to you. A man that will raise his hand to slap you when you guys are not yet married, it tells you that that man is already a red flag for you, not to do that kind of marriage.
Okay, let's just put it that a man that will shout at you. Because some people would never beat you till you marry. Some marriages last for the first 20 years. There was no such incident. Some for the first 10 years. And then suddenly, something starts to provoke one party to react. I remember one story we read on the papers where this girl in Ikorodu, the neighbors constantly hear the beating. But the first time she reacted, there was a dead body. Yes. She killed him.
Yes.
She was a teacher. I can never forget that story.
The tears on her eyes when the police came. She didn't run. She stayed there and
she said that they've been beating me.
The neighbors were confirming that every day. But see what happened. The first time she did something, I don't know whatever she picked. I can't remember. Was it a bottle or something? And he was dead.
She said she was trying to scare him and then he died.
Because he doesn't think that she would dare. If she had been a crazy wife from the get-go, you slap me, I slap you back.
We're not encouraging craziness.
I'm not saying that. I'm careful
I get
that we must stand up.
Stand up
for yourself.
If it happens, walk out of the house, even if it's at night. Let your family hear it. Do not cover it. Don't make it a secret. Do whatever it takes to stop it. Go and do something about it. Don't just stay there and tomorrow morning, we love each other. We could this marriage.
We're getting somewhere. I'm liking the points I'm taking for our conclusion, but we haven't been able to solve how far is too far.
Yeah.
And no, because because I'm of the opinion that yes, she said stand up, you said speak up, somebody said step out, so we already have 3 options.
Too far is when you are taking a knife, when you are pouring hot water or hot oil on somebody. That's too far.
So something that came. I just remembered. It came to my mind earlier.
You forgot a woman that cut off her husband's member.
Yes, but that.
You want to go that far?
So too far is when you react in anger, or you are premeditating premeditating your revenge. That's too far. That's too far. That person that cut off the member had planned, waited for the man to sleep, took a knife and sliced off the member. That was premeditated. That's too far. So, because we also, I know that there are some things that, you know, I married into a family that has, they are all boys. So I have my senior and senior, and each person they have their different ways of dealing with things. So as I was getting married, I was getting married and I was told, there are things, Chinenye, you cannot try this with Chinenye. Like, you cannot try it. Right from the beginning of the marriage, she defined
our barriers,
our boundaries within the house. Don't go, you cannot go into this place and do. She created that system. So there were things that I didn't even see as wrong. And they were telling me, this one that they are doing in your house, they cannot try it in this person's house. So I feel like that process of defining boundaries is a preventive measure that you should be taught in pre-marriage counseling. And we were not taught. And I did pre-marriage counseling. I was not taught about putting boundaries in my house, having tough conversations like, this is the way, how far you can go, or how far you can come, or even if you're angry, this is how we're going to deal with.
This topic, this thing you're right, is a huge topic because it's not only for marriage, it's also for relationships. And, you know, for many of us, the way we're raised is that be more accommodating in the beginning.
Nice.
You know, be nice to people in the beginning. Give people the benefit of the doubt. And anyone who comes across different, who is quickly setting boundaries, we see the person as rude, you know, the person doesn't have home training.
Yes.
But now as we're adults, those of us, I admire those who had set boundaries from the very beginning. And so after you have gone through the awkwardness of understanding their boundaries, then you get to know these people and love them for who they are.
Honestly.
But meanwhile, they've taken you as a nice person who understands. And then you're not setting boundaries in the middle of the relationship.
So you're pretentious.
Like, you are a pretending person.
So 2 of my aunties gave me an advice, because they don't talk relationship in my own family, they talk marriage. So 2 of them gave me advice, and one was clear. She said, Nima, you need to put your foot down. it was about Olokpo and Iyawole duties. She said, Nima, when you approach your in-laws, come with your cooks. Don't let anybody send you on errand. I regret not taking that advice. It was against me for 8 years. I will walk. I will almost die. But the one that advised me that, Nima, any conversation that you're afraid because your voice is going up to have is a time bomb waiting to happen. Because if that thing bothers you, that conversation must happen. Your husband must have it. If you don't have it, you then start to bottle up, you steam up. And I thank God that advice I took. Because when my husband flares up, I'll be like, okay, I'll give him I said, this conversation has to happen. Because this thing bothers me. I'll be like, eh. And then when we finally do have the conversation, I iron things like, okay, I understand your side. So I have always deployed that method. For that advice I took, you know the one for the Olokpo work I did not take. Now that I'm enjoying the relief of it, I'm always regretting. Because my auntie,
that you had in the beginning,
my auntie
started by carrying your...
They did only the traditional rites, the introduction, and then it was Eid, the big Eid. And the family would kill cow there from the island, they would do all of that. My auntie was coming to her in-laws' house for the first time with 2 cooks. And she sat pretty. And all the other wives were looking like, who is this one? The last wife of the family with her heads up, her shoulder high. But the mother-in-law called her and said, you're a smart girl. I love you for that. And that tradition continues. All the wives now come with their...
I also know husbands that set
your boundaries.
In that case where, you know, there's a new wife in the family and they want to send, like, please don't send my wife on this sort of errand. Do not do
They do those demeaning errands.
Yes, and they step up.
I went through all those.
Step up.
So, honestly, there's another part of response that, you know, the story stemmed from brothers beating up their husband. And I don't think that the way they beat up the man would have led to his death.
No.
The beating was to embarrass him. I'm not excusing beating, but don't look at me like that. Let me clarify. I'm saying that...
Because the one that led to the death, they will not
They didn't plan it too. Okay. So, obviously, in conclusion, no beating. Let's just... But in the same vein, we need to appeal to our police.
Let me even say something. Sometimes when I'm thinking of life issues, I also, apart from thinking about it as a wife or the person in it, I also think about it as a mother. Would I want tomorrow for a wife to come and tell me that Foge beats my daughter-in-law, to tell me that my own Foge that I have raised beats her? Would I even want to hear that she had now gotten her brother to come and beat my son in the house for that terrible, embarrassing behavior? So that's the way I also look at it. I don't want that for him as well.
You don't want the circle.
Yeah, no, it's not even about me protecting myself, also protecting the next generation of people who are going to be getting married. I don't want a girl to come into my family and that's how they are solving issues in that family.
Yeah,
God forbid,
that's what it means. Let's take a few social media comments.
So someone said, are you married? Ready or rather, are you ready for marriage? Omo Ekopataki says, touch not my sisters and do my daughters no harm, else you will collect. Ogumola Emmanuel says, there's no excuse for violence, but some partners can provoke you to an extent of action. Some people say walk away when you're provoked, but please, what do you do when a woman lock both shirts and your door? Or what do you do when a woman slaps you as a man? B. John says, okay, that's a political one. Let me take this one. Shegun says, I want to support Nima's view. I once had an uncle, after beating his wife, he would still go to his mother-in-law and beat her, saying she didn't raise her daughter well. And the wife's siblings gave him a visit, the beating of his life, and after then, he never tried it again. I think he didn't fear people in the house first.
Bill K says, does Jane truly believe you see everything in totality prior to marriage? That's not feasible. In fact, people can pretend and people change too.
Yes.
You can't tell it all from the get-go. Some bad traits are well hidden, non-existent when you start courting. And that's the truth. You know, many times there are many of us that when we finished secondary school, they went off and they got married. I know that a lot of life lessons.
They have not had pressure. And usually pressure reveals content.
Those who are so perfect outside, they will be good. Your parents will tell you, this is the man for you, this is the man. And
when you enter into the
marriage. Andrew says, Nima, you be lawyer. You cannot break the law of the land as an assault, no matter how angry you do.
So Hafsat says the divorce is never the first option. In any conflicts, you should work on the marriage. It should be the very last thing when nothing seems to be working.
If you're in a violent, I want to say, if you're in a violent situation, take a step out and walk from it from a distance. So that when they throw the hand, it will not reach your face.
So there are a few things we're almost out of time. In conclusion, we've said a whole lot today, and I just took a few notes that I want to remind all our viewers on. We spoke about the fact that you must speak up. Speak up. If you are in a violent situation, male or female, don't isolate yourself. Reach out to family members and friends and see how you can get help in resolving that situation. Second, stand up. Stand up for yourself early enough. The first slap is enough. Don't wait until it turns to blow and you turn to punching bag. Stand up for yourself and in a non-violent manner, express boundaries that this is not allowed in this space. Step out. If you find yourself with someone who cannot listen to any form of reason before it becomes obituary, step out of such situation. And I know, I think it was Mariam that said there's no excuse for violence. Being very observant even before we get married, setting boundaries right from the get-go of that marriage. Avoid premeditated violence. If you are beginning to plan and stew on how you will revenge against your husband or your wife, sis, step out of that relationship. And on that note, we've come to the end of a very interesting show, if I do say so myself. Thank you, ladies, for a very intellectual conversation, and I'm sure a lot of people have learnt. That's all we can take today. See you all tomorrow. Bye.